You're watching Welcome to Fresburg with cartoons for kids that are educational. Make sure you check us out every Tuesday with a new episode, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our videos. Hey, right now I'm getting ready to talk to you about a famous American president by the name of Ronald Reagan. Have you ever heard of Ronald Reagan? Well, Ronald Reagan was the president during the 80s, and we're going to take a journey and learn about his life. Starting off, Ronald Reagan was born on February 6, 1911 in Tampico, Illinois. When most people think of Ronald Reagan, they think of his years in the White House, but before that, he was an actor. Starring in over 50 films, Ronald Reagan had roles not only on the big screen, but television too. When it came to finding love for Reagan, this also started in Hollywood with his entertainment connections. This is where he met his wife, then Nancy Davis, while he was the president of the Screen Actors Guild. Later on, helping him even more, Reagan stepped into a big spotlight in 1964. This was because he did a big speech for Republican presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. Well, when he did that speech, a lot of people heard what he was saying. And let's just say, a couple of years later, he beat Pat Brown by 1 million votes, winning the California governorship. He was so popular that he won a second term when he ran again in 1970, but kept trying and finally got it in 1980, where he won the U.S. presidential election. A fun fact about Ronald Reagan was he tried to stop smoking and he had a hard time. So in order to stop smoking, he took up eating jelly beans. So when he was in the White House, you had a lot of rooms in the White House that had a ton of jelly beans. Another interesting thing about Ronald Reagan is he had trouble hearing. What happened was during his life in Hollywood, a gun had went off on set near his ear, and that is where he lost his hearing. Now I know a lot of people are into football, and so was Ronald Reagan. He was a successful football player at Eureka College, and he was also a lifeguard there in Illinois, where he saved around 77 people from drowning, so he was a hero then too. Now when it came to the judicial system in Washington, President Reagan was a president who actually got to nominate 5 Supreme Court justices. That's right, 5. Most presidents are lucky to get 1, but he got in 5. Another thing he was responsible for was helping the Cold War end. Back during the 80s, when President Reagan came into office, it was something called the Cold War going on, where Russia had a ton of nuclear arms, meaning weapons and missiles and stuff like that they wanted to fight with. But with the help of Ronald Reagan and talking with the Soviet Union, they reduced the number of nuclear arms they had to end the Cold War. Another political win was that Ronald Reagan was very influential in helping to take down the Berlin Wall. After leaving the White House, he returned home to California, where him and Nancy lived in their Los Angeles, California home, at their mansion and the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library that later opened in Simi Valley. Toward the end of his life, Ronald Reagan was diagnosed with ALZHEIMERS, where he couldn't remember things, and later died on June 5, 2004. This is where, after a funeral was done in Washington, D.C., he was later buried on the Presidential Library grounds in California. And that was the life of President Ronald Reagan.